Hello, everybody. It is me, All Political again. Today, I am going to rant. I have not done a rant in a hot minute. I have not done a video over 20 minutes. And I figured, why not add another video to All Political Rants? All I've been doing are short takes, news, worthy things, political takes that don't take all that much time to do, because I haven't dedicated myself enough time to rant. But my last videos seem to get enough traction. However, I am going to turn down this goddamn fan. Let's see here. Yeah, there we go. Hopefully that quiets things down. Hopefully you don't hear that. My laptop has a tendency to turn into an eldritch god of sound that just makes your ears bleed when it starts heating up a little bit too much, especially when it's on a certain performance fan setting. So I have to turn it down to silent during these recording sessions. Otherwise, it will blare out the microphone. It is that bad. It's the same reason why I can't have my AC running, because it will override my voice, my lovely voice. But anyway, as you see, I already have a couple things pulled up that I want to talk about and rant about, because it is one of my favorite subjects that I like talking to about people and bringing up. But I don't get that many chances to really talk about it to people. I do rant about it, but I feel like almost nobody listens to me. But I feel like if I present it to the right audience, maybe they'll listen, Anyway, to get on with the rant. Oh, I am wearing my back brace today because my back is saying, fuck you. You shall be in pain. And it is because I have decided to start standing at my desk longer at work because I hate sitting down because it makes me feel like shit. So, of course, when I feel like shit, I am proactive about it and I do something in order to make myself feel better. And then my body says, no, you're not allowed to do that. You shall be in pain. And I'm like, bro, okay, fuck you, I guess. Anyway, sorry for the breathing. China, the great power struggle in the Arctic Circle. This is one of my core military strategy, geopolitical strategy theories that I have, that I've been working on for several months now. And my theory about this is actually starting to pan out in regards to Ukraine and Europe and the like. It's part of the reason why Trump won the last election, more than likely, if it wasn't just completely fraudulent. It's part of the reason why we're able to have the likes of Vladimir Putin on American soil without him worrying about getting arrested for being a fucking war criminal. It's also part of the reason why our European partners are trying to work with us on this issue as well, and why Ukraine is so willing to also work with us, because the Ukraine war is just a symptom of a older war problem, whatever you want to call it. It's a lingering symptom of World War II and the Cold War and the like, which hasn't been fully resolved between Europe and Russia, or just the West in general. But I feel like it will eventually resolve itself, at least temporarily, over the next 2 to 5 years, if not the next decade, because there is a greater threat on the horizon, and that is China. And the reason why I say China is because they are building out their military at a faster pace than anybody else on the planet. Their industrial base is so fucking massive that they make at least half the world's goods. I don't have exact figures. I'm not going to pull them up, but these are general sentiments and statements coming from memory, from my understanding of how the world works. Like, so if you want to fact check me later, fucking whatever, it's fine. I'll correct myself. But China's production capacity and manufacturing capability is insane. It's becoming mostly automated at this point. China's shipbuilding capacity is 250 times larger than that of the United States. That is an actual number, I think, is 257 times larger than the United States. So basically, the Chinese can put out about 250 times more tonnage on a time basis comparison than that of the entire United States. So say China puts out, or we put out like 1 million tons a year into the water in our shipbuilding capacity. China has the ability to do 257 times more than that. Meaning if China ever turned over to a wartime footing, you're talking about a capability of churning out potentially 257 different war-capable ships, cargo, transport, whatever you fucking want, on a monthly, if not annual basis. And if you want to understand just how big that is basically the equivalent of being able to build an entire U.S. Navy, almost an entire U.S. Navy, in a year, if not a couple of years. Mind you, the entire United States Navy consists of 11 super carriers, 50 submarines, including 4 SSGNs, 2 operable Seawolf classes, about a dozen or so fast attacks, 688s, and about 20 or so Virginia class attack submarines. So, and then you have the destroyers, which we have a couple dozen of. You have cruisers, you have your LSTs, which we have a dozen or 2 of as well. Basically, they're normal sized aircraft carriers compared to everybody else, but we just consider them amphibious aircraft carriers, even though they're fully capable of carrying F-35s and like imagine what the U.S. Navy can do with what we have, with only about 300 ships, and then China being able to basically build the equivalent of that within a couple of years if they put their production capacity and automating capacity towards their shipyards in a wartime setting. That is fucking terrifying. You're talking about, you remember the legends of the Great Fleet before I think it was the 14th or 15th century, how they built the biggest ships that had ever been seen or built in human history up until that point. Built like 100 plus of them, and then 200 more support ships, and sent them traveling around the known old world at the time to basically show off China's might. And then they came back and all got burnt because some emperor lost their mind and thought they lost the mandate of heaven because the palace burned down. Imagine that, but with modern technology. China's current economy in a wartime footing with a shipyard production capacity unlike anybody else on the planet, unlike anything else we have ever seen in human history. What could they possibly be able to do in a genuine wartime setting? How many submarines could they put out? How many aircraft carriers the size of like super, like genuine, like super carriers could they build within a couple of years if they put their minds and hearts to it? We in the United States only have a couple of shipyards that are able to build aircraft, nuclear powered aircraft carriers, let alone LSTs, let alone nuclear submarines. I think we have 2 shipyards that are on the East Coast. 2 shipyards that are capable of, 1, building nuclear reactors for our naval assets, and 2, building the ships for it, let alone nuclear powered submarines. And we have, I think, 2 or 3 refurbishment shipyards on the East Coast. And then on the West Coast, this is like maybe 2 or 3, and then there's Hawaii. But the thing is that every time somebody has to be brought in for major maintenance, they're like brought in over to the mainland because the logistic chains and all that shit just works out better on the continental United States if you want to get refurbished as a ship, like obviously. So realistically, we have less than maybe a dozen shipyards on both sides of the coast of the continental United States that we could truly, really utilize in a wartime situation. Even then, if we lose the Panama Canal in some way, our East Coast becomes kind of cut off and it becomes a strategic fucking nightmare trying to get ships over to the Pacific. And that's half of our production capacity right there in terms of ships. So China has 257 times more shipbuilding capacity than we do, all on one coast, because that's all they fucking got. And the rest of the world is wondering, what the fuck are they going to do with it? The rest of the world also knows that the most likely case scenario is that China is going to try to break through the first island chain. And as you see right here, first island chain, which starts at the southern tip of Japan, goes through Okinawa, goes to Taiwan, Philippines, Malaysia, all the way up to Vietnam. And the thing is that China only really has one genuine way to break out of the first island chain. And there's two things that I have to talk about here. Why do they want to break out of the first island chain? Well, if they don't break out of the first island chain, they're not going to be able to project military power in the way in which they want to or need to in order to survive the next century, or survive till the end of the century. So right now they're blocked in two ways to nowhere. First island chain, second island chain. First island chain is your first line of defense, is the most defended, has the most adversaries, has the most interest in keeping China in and being able to protect themselves. The second island chain acts as a secondary barrier to basically prevent the likes of other adversaries from going too deep into the Pacific and taking over things like Midway or Hawaii, or doing an island hopping campaign like the likes of Japan in World War II, and what the United States did back in return in order to, get to Japan. That's the entire purpose of the second island chain, to prevent that from happening. Because once you get past the second island chain, you can start doing your island hopping campaign in the Pacific, and it's going to be very difficult for anybody else except for the United States to try to root anybody out of there. So, but once you break out the first island chain, basically you have the ability to patrol all of this and basically go out into the entire Pacific with very little pushback. You don't have as much tight control in between all these islands and ridges and all the topography here as you do out here. You have a couple islands, you have Guam, a couple more islands, and then I think this is Papua New Guinea. Yeah, but still, you don't have as much to be able to counter massive fleets going out into the Pacific to do whatever they want to do. So that leads me to what they're going to do. So we covered the why, what they're going to do. They could try to go after Japan. Now, has that ever worked in their favor in the last couple of centuries? No, that has never happened. In fact, the opposite's happened. And Japan is a near-term potential nuclear power. Basically, they have the capability to ramp up a nuclear weapons program and have a operable nuke ready within 6 to 12 months. They are the closest on the planet to being able to do something like that. And they have the know-how, and they could probably do it faster if they really, really put their minds to it. So that is a big ol' don't fuck around with for Japan. They also have aircraft carriers. They also are a tech dominant power. They also have an economy to back them up. And I'm not even going to talk about the allied power structure. There's just individual nations you could try to go after, and it ain't gonna fucking work in certain cases. Yeah, South Korea, same deal as Japan. Like, South Korea has massive technological leverage at their disposal, and they're right next door to Japan, and they could coordinate in regards to a lot of military strategy. Like, they have a tattered history, but in terms of working against China, that's a bad deal. Plus, North Korea as a buffer state from South Korea, dude, sure, North Korea is going to offer itself up as a first salvo fucking sacrifice to really start getting at South Korea if China decides to do anything, but that's not going to last too long. So South Korea is a no-go. The Philippines, too big, too chunky, too much going on, and a little bit too far away, kind of like Japan. They're not a dominant tech power, but they have a navy and they know what they're doing. And they're a lot bigger than, say, South Korea. Same with Malaysia. Like, it's just, dude, there's like hundreds of millions of people that live all down in this region. It's a very population dense area, and they all have their navies and all have their own interests. Like, for fuck's sake, Indonesia has their own submarines. Like, almost all of these nations have their own submarines. They're all diesels, but still, like, imagine all these guys banding together with their diesel submarine fleets, even if there's like onesies, twosies, and just going into the South China Sea and causing havoc. Like, you don't want that. Vietnam is Vietnam. Every time somebody tries to invade them, they get their ass kicked. So that's why they've been able to stand the test of time, and why China is probably not going to try to push south or do anything with them. That's not an option. And it also doesn't get them out of the fucking first island chain. So you're left with Taiwan. And of course, I was going to get there. Taiwan is a small country, even though it has technology. It's limited to one area, which is semiconductors. And they're dependent on outside military powers to provide them weapons, ammunition, food, supplies, and the like, and also enough manpower to be able to defend themselves. They are the primary target of the Chinese Communist Party. They have been the prime target of China for decades now, and China has been preparing to do something with them for decades, and they plan on doing something by 2027 onward. So Taiwan is their primary target. Taiwan, if they can get that down pat, if they can successfully invade them, they have a beachhead going past the first island chain that is basically an impenetrable fucking fortress. And they have the military capability to do it. They have the resources to do it. They have the manpower to do it. They're going to eventually have the logistics to do it. And they have the money to do it. So it's not a question of if they can actually pull it off. It's just a matter of when. In 2027 to 2035 is the prime time. And let me tell you, the moment they have the full-on capability to do what they plan on doing, they're not going to hesitate. So 2027, 2028, 2029, all the way to 2030 is going to be the most horrid period in terms of waiting for China to do something that we've experienced in the last couple of decades, because that's when they say they're going to have the capability to pull off a successful Taiwan invasion. The thing is that they don't even have to do a full-on invasion. They can just do a naval blockade for a good year or two. They have the capability to do that. So, and this is open source. People have studied this strategy. They have that option, and it would work too. Taiwan could just, end up surrendering because they run out of fucking food. And that would be horrible, and it would be probably the best strategy for China. But then as a last resort, they could probably do a genuine fucking invasion if Taiwan puts up too much of a fucking fight. Ooh, now this gets to breaking out of the first island chain. Once they break out of the first island chain, they have free reign basically in the Pacific Ocean. Second island chain is only going to be able to do so much in terms of range capability of our aircraft carriers, air assets, and the like. Japan is only going to be able to do so much in terms of patrolling and trying to keep China out. Same with the Philippines. But once that first island chain is broken, nothing's going to stop China from being able to project power out into the Pacific Ocean. And from there, they're going to try to get to the Arctic. And this is where it gets really spicy, because the Arctic is the battleground of the century. It is going to become the new economic shipping lane area of the world. Almost all of the major economies on the planet are going to start using the shipping routes of the Arctic once the ice melts get to a certain point as global temperatures continue to increase. We're already starting to see major merchant traffic shipping and the like going through the Arctic because they can, and it's safe enough to do so. So, in a future where the United States controls the likes of Panama, the Panama Canal, and the Mediterranean seaways become unstable or unusable or unsafe due to terrorist shit, Iran doing its thing, Israel doing its thing, pirate activity from Somalia, Ethiopia, the likes. Where are you going to go? What's the shortest route? What's the safest route at that point? It's going to be the Arctic. So everybody's planning right now a hostile, but also not so hostile takeover than Arctic seaways. Why do you think, besides Panama, that's an obvious one, why do you think the United States is so interested in trying to make Canada a state? Because there's a lot of sea lanes up in Canada that are unprotected that the likes of Russia and China and other northern powers have been trying to, use to their own benefit, in which the United States doesn't have full capability of monitoring and controlling them. Like, sure, they have bases in Greenland, but that's not the same as, say, actually owning the fucking land and controlling it fully as your own. It's kind of like the difference between owning Alaska and then just having a base in Greenland. Like, what do you think the United States would genuinely, honestly prefer in that situation for a battle of the Arctic? Especially with a map like this, where they're battling with Russia and Norway in Greenland. Like, that's a decent chunk of the Arctic right there. They want that. The United States wants that control. They want control over the major sea lanes. And they want control of it with the likes of their European partners, which they're trying to work with. But the thing is that Russia dominates the Arctic. It's their backyard. They have been in control of it for so long. It's not even funny. Like this is their home. this is where all their major naval assets are, all their fleet stuff, all their testing, whatever you want to call it. Like, this is their sea, this is their ocean, this is where they mow the lawn. if you want an equivalent metaphor for it, like, this is their backyard. So you have a foreign threat which is planning on breaking out of a barrier permanently with a plan to become the next world power, to usurp the United States and the likes in the West. Basically, the Chinese want a Chinese century. They are done with their century of humiliation. They want a Chinese century. They want a Sino-dominant world. And they cannot do that unless they break out of the first island chain and they gain influence in the Arctic. Why do you think they've been trying to buy airports and the like in Greenland? Try to build up infrastructure projects in Greenland and fun stuff there. And the United States has been like, absolutely fucking not, no, and taking over those projects and kicking China out, because that's part of the strategy. China needs the Arctic to survive as the economic power in the future, because all the other sea lanes are going to be cut off. And unless China has a say here or some stake here or an ally in this area, they're cut off from the rest of the world. This is half of the planet right here in terms of shipping traffic once it opens up. If they don't have access to this, if they're completely cut off and controlled by the West and Russia and the likes, they're fucked, and they know this. So, how does this line up with my thinking about the Russian-Ukrainian war and how European powers are working with the United States on trying to settle this, and why the United States is cuddling up with Russia as of recent months, if not years? I say it's because of this. The West wants to try to put aside their differences for the coming conflict, because they know that they must block off the Arctic from China. Because if China gets a foothold in here, then they cannot control the flow of commerce. Or the West cannot control the flow of commerce. If the West cannot control the flow of commerce, and China can, then the world is China's. It is Sino-dominant. But if the West, and Russia is technically part of the West in many ways, if we control the Arctic Circle, if we put aside our Cold War fucking differences and realize who the real threat is, who has 257 times the shipbuilding capacity of the United States, which already has the largest navy in the world, if we put aside our differences, one, we can prevent China turning the next century into a Chinese century and turning the world into a Sino-dominant world. But we can protect ourselves for the next century. We can basically control the entire Northern Hemisphere. We can control half of the world's merchant traffic and the likes over the next century or two, basically permanently. And we can prevent the most likely cause of a major global nuclear conflict, which is a nuclear war between the United States and Russia, and also Europe. So if these three major power centers, Russia, the EU, the United States, can all somewhat put aside their differences, settle the Ukraine war, get security guarantees of some sort going on there, and we can start, working with Russia. The EU can start working with Russia, but we maintain our sovereignty, our energy independence, our manufacturing independence, but only open up trade and development and the like. Maybe we could learn a lot from each other. Maybe we have a lot to gain with each other. Maybe we can control the fucking Arctic and keep the Chinese out. This is not a NATO versus Russia thing anymore. It's the Arctic powers versus China. That's the next century of conflict. That is the thing that everybody's concerned about. That is why everything is happening as it is right now. At least that's my theory. So if you start seeing a lot more cozying up with the likes of Russia from the EU powers and the United States and the like, but also keeping an arm's distance away from each other still, because there's still that century of distrust between all those major powers, it makes sense. But the main focus is China. And even NATO has said for themselves that right now the current strategy is basically for the United States to step back away from doing land defense and the like for against Russia and focusing more of the resources on China. While the EU continues to make sure that the Russians don't get the need or the want to do fucky wucky shit in Eastern Europe again. And Russia just kind of has that tendency to want to do that. They have every incentive to do so. They have a need to do so from a geostrategic standpoint. There are major geographic areas in which they have to secure in order to make sure that they are able to survive the long term. But the European powers that be don't want to cease to exist in order to ensure a Russian future, you know, like that's so there's that conflict there that will never probably go away. And I honestly don't think that will ever go away until Vladimir Putin passes away from old age. And hopefully he does before we start getting longevity drugs. I have no idea how long that motherfucker is going to live for. But yeah, I don't think the current old guard of leadership between Russia, Europe, and America are going to get to a point where we could be all happy, buddy, whatever. But definitely in a couple generations, we could see a lot more cooperation on the Arctic front. That is for sure. And the thing is that all these neighbors right here, except for Greenland, all have similar military capability. They do, like genuinely do. It's just Canada and Greenland are the weak spots, honestly, because Europe, they got it fucking down, dude. They are a top tier military power. I mean, Germany themselves are going to end up being like the third or fourth largest fucking military spending power on the planet once they start ramping up to meet their NATO percentage commitment. Like Europe they're good. They're good for at least the next generation or two. Russia, I would be concerned about, but they still have that Cold War technology and capability that they are modernizing and are still able to harass the likes of Europe and the United States at the same time. They have a lot of experience in this area. Again, it's their backyard. And Canada, it's not a Geneva Convention, it's a Geneva checklist. But again, the United States is still going to be very much incentivized to set up as much military presence as possible in the likes of Canada, Northern Canada, and Northern Greenland, and really expand that influence there, if not outright take it over if they need to. This is why I call people retarded for saying that Trump was going to sell Alaska to Russia. like it doesn't make any sense for the overall context of what is going on, at least for my theory, to sell Alaska to Russia, because that just gives them more say so in the Arctic. We want to balance things out. We want to be able to control it in a way that is trilateral, in a sense that keeps China out and keeps the Ruskies in, I guess. But also, I have to address one thing. The Ruskies, the Russians, and the Chinese, their alliance is that of convenience, not of, and a convenience and necessity rather than genuine want. The Russia-Ukraine war, Russia's economy is kind of fucking China can support, they're making money out of it, but Russia does not like the fact that China is stealing so much of their technology and all that, and it's a contentious alliance, to say the least, and I don't know how long it's going to last. It could fall apart tomorrow, honestly. Like it's one of those types of alliances. It's a very much a Axis Italy with allying itself with Nazi Germany. Like I don't know how long that's going to last for, and it could be any fucking day now, any month, any week, where Russia's just like, fuck this shit, because it's the Chinese. Everybody knows what they do. So that is my rant. That is my theory. That is my geopolitical take on the current situation over the next century. My theory thus far is panning out. But it's going to take years, if not decades, to prove in the long term. And of course, things could radically fucking change. But as it stands right now, I honestly don't think I'm wrong in this assessment. I've talked to a few other knowledgeable people about it, and they agree with my assessment. I've talked with some other European friends of mine, and they also agree with the sentiment, even though they hate the idea of working with the Ruskies, which is understandable, especially the Finns that I've talked to. But overall, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, for fuck's sake, the whole United States producing a fuck ton of LNG in order to support NATO and for them to maintain energy independence from Russia in the long term has panned out. Well, and that's mainly to make sure that Russia can cooperate, to ensure that Russia cooperates, because if Russia has leverage over the EU in terms of energy shit, then they're never going to cooperate. But once you take that energy lever away from Russia, then Russia may want to come to the table a little bit more, because they don't have anything to really use against the EU. So things are working out slowly but surely in this theory's favor. This is a big ass video though. Holy shit. I'm going to go ahead and stop. My throat is sore. I need to get some fucking water. And my back is feeling a lot fucking better. Oh shit. I didn't really dive that deep into what Japan and the Philippines and South Korea and all that would do, because it's pretty obvious they'll try to stop China from invading Taiwan, but at the same time it's kind of questionable whether or not they'll actually spend the time and research on doing that, because that's I like, if the United States can't stop them, why the fuck would they think they could? I mean, it would be a combined effort. It would be a combined allied effort. But the thing is that the alliance only works as long as China is actually kept out or kept within the first island chain. The moment they break out, then things fall apart, because that shows that the United States can't guarantee security in that area anymore. So yeah, anything else? Oh yeah, Bitcoin is going down a little bit. I think it's been like, so it went down like $10,000, $12,000. Yeah, it went down by like 10%. Nice healthy correction. What else? I think interest rates are definitely going to be cut in September. The economy's slowing down. That's going to be awesome, because if they continue cutting interest rates into next year, then maybe I could finally refi my fucking house. I already have a relatively low mortgage interest rate on my house compared to everybody else over the last 3 or 4 years. So I may have to wait like a good year or so for mortgage interest rates to come down enough for it to make fucking sense for me to do like a streamlined fucking refinance, not cash out, just to lower the payment of the damn debt, which will be super helpful for me transitioning out of the military, lower my cost basis for cost of living. Yeah, that is pretty much it. Hopefully this new microphone setup worked out a little bit better, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, complaints, or concerns, go ahead and comment below. If you want to continue watching my stupid ass videos, go ahead and watch over here. And if you love this content in my channel or myself or literally anything I've said, or even if you hate it, or even if you think I suck, just subscribe and keep track of my videos and the comment below saying I fucking suck. Like just subscribe, like the video, share it. I don't care. Again, people rant all the time on fucking YouTube and they make plenty of money from it. If I provide a flavored fucking educated take on geopolitical strategy and shit like that, and why not share it? For fuck's sake, Osmond Gold can post hour-and-a-half long videos and get like 1 million views on it in like a day. Like me getting like 10 views on this shit shouldn't be that hard, right? Maybe long form content is something I should definitely do. Yeah, I should definitely do that more. All right, this is going on the rants. Again, watch my videos, like, subscribe, share, comment. I am all political. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you. Bye, and have a good night.